Welcome to the testing project. And so my title is Correlation Between Counter Movement Jump and Explosive Leg Power Factor on the Just Jump Mat System on Trained Adults and Athletes. Introduction. And so this project seeks to find correlation between a muscular power test, the counter movement jump, and the explosive leg power factor using the jump 1 mode and the jump 4 mode respectively on the Just Jump Mat system for trained adults and athletes, which were all hockey players. And so I decided to choose these two tests because I'm interested if there's correlation between maximal jump height and the ability to get off the ground as quick as possible. So what I find interesting about the explosive leg power factor specifically is that it does not only take into account how quick you're getting off the ground, but it also takes into account air time, which is jump height. Understanding this might help us determine exercise selection for individuals or athletes that simply want to jump higher, and can be incredibly imperative for athletes requiring high explosivity such as basketball, volleyball, hockey, soccer, football, Olympic lifters, and many more. Both of these tests can be measured periodically to monitor performance over time and can help a strength and conditioning professional determine if he needs to adjust his or her periodization based on if the athlete is improving or if he's deteriorating. Description of the test. And so let's start with the evolution of jump testing. So we have Dr. Sargent here who developed the Sargent jump test. So it involved taking the fingers on one hand and standing next to a wall and calculating your reach. Without taking a step back, you would jump as high as possible, touching the wall. The difference between your reach and the point on the wall would be your vertical jump. Next came the invention of a vertec on the right side of our screen here. And so again, you would calculate your reach and you would jump as high as possible, touching one of the veins. Again, the difference between your reach and the highest vein would be your vertical jump. Following this came the invention of contact mats, rubber mats, which we will be using in our little study for these two tests, which you can see the Just Jump Mat system on the bottom left of our screen. Population of interest. So jump variations are excellent exercises to measure muscular power and are extremely beneficial for the athletic population. The counter movement jump is one of the most researched tests and is one of the most used tests to calculate explosiveness of the lower limbs. The counter movement jump can be a great test to monitor performance over time and again help a strength and conditioning professional know if he needs to adjust his or her periodization, and are extremely beneficial for sports requiring high explosivity, such as, again, volleyball, basketball, Olympic lifters, and many more. The explosive leg power factor, again, is extremely beneficial because it can be a great exercise or a great test to monitor performance over time and demonstrate the ability to change from a eccentric to a concentric contraction while also jumping as high as possible. Sport that require fast change of direction or quick acceleration, deceleration might require or might be beneficial to perform the explosive leg power factor test. Again, football, hockey, soccer are all sports, Olympic lifters are all sports that require a high explosive leg power factor. And again, it's a great exercise to monitor performance over time. So testing. Both counter movement jump and the jump 4 time will be conducted on the Just Jump Mat system here we have at the bottom of our screen. For the counter movement jump, we'll be using the 1 jump mode, which will be used for maximal vertical jump given to us in inches. So if we look at the picture on the right, right above the jump 1 time mode, we see that the second number here, the 26.3, would be our jump in inches. And for the jump 4 test, all right, which is the name of the test, will be used to calculate the explosive leg power factor given to us by the Just Jump Mat system. But its equation is air time divided by ground time. And so looking at the pictures the picture on the left, we see that the 2.06 is our explosive leg power factor. And so those are the two numbers that will be correlating. And then each participant would only get one attempt on both tests. And so just ensure that people don't get, they get familiar after one or two attempts. And so it's just to kind of maintain that reliability and that validity. And so a little bit more about explosive light power factor, like I just mentioned. Its equation is air time divided by ground time. The jump 4 test is a reactive strength index. And so the less time on the ground and the higher the jump, the higher the explosive light power factor. A score greater than 2.50 is considered elite. I haven't seen anyone in our study hit that 2.50, but I've seen some close one. We have a lot of 220, 230. And so about a third of a second ground time is considered elite, and 20 inches and above is considered good for jump height, especially in the jump 4 test, since it's not a maximal jump and you're actually jumping 4 times. So for the jump 1 mode protocol, the athletes must complete the following steps. And so before beginning, I instructed them to remove their shoes, that both hands must remain on the side of their hips, on their waist at all time, to do a little dip and jump as high as possible while keeping their legs straight. Keeping their legs straight was very important because flexing the hips would give you a much higher jump since it's calculating air time. Failure to do so would be an invalid attempt. And so step 1, stand on mat, jump 1 time landing on the mat with both feet. I'll write down the test score in my Excel sheet under the appropriate table. Athletes, active adults, and the athletes adults group. I'll instruct them to step off the mat. For the second jump, we have the 4 jump mode. And so again, very similar. I instructed them to remove their shoes. Both hands must remain on the hip, on the waistline, and they must do a little dip and jump as high as possible while getting off the ground as quick as possible 4 times, landing on the mat each time while keeping the leg straight. And so failure to do so will be an invalid attempt again. And so again, stand on mat, jump 4 times as high and as quick as possible, landing on the mat each time. I'll write it down in the appropriate table. So active adults, athletes, and the adults athlete group, and I will instruct them to step off the mat. So here we have my little coaching demonstration video. Dr. Brabham, I don't think, if you click on the picture there, it should work, and there's a link. I'll also include the link in the little submission box. Testing and findings, all right? So description of data collection. After each jump, data will be recorded under the appropriate table, active adults, athletes, and adults athletes group. Jump height in inches will be marked under counter movement jump, and the explosive light power factor will be marked under the jump 4 test. I will use the Corel function where under my array 1 will be the counter movement jump in inches, and under array 2 will be the explosive light power factor. Excel will do the calculation and the formula for me, and then I'll mark down the correlation under overall correlation. Correlation will be run for the 2 groups independently, and so the active adults and the athletes, and then it will be ran all together. I'll analyze the correlation given to me and identify its relationship. Findings. And so data analysis for the active adult group. So on the left, those are some real-time data. All right, so counter movement jump in inches, and then the jump 4 test, or the explosive light power factor. We had 5 participants, 3 males, 2 females, with a correlation of 0.97, which is a near perfect correlation. So we see that it represents a significant, strong, positive relationship between the counter movement jump and the explosive light power factor. This means that the higher the counter movement jump is, the more likely an individual is going to have a high explosive light power factor, vice versa. Similar for the athletes group, we have a little bit lower of a correlation here, 0.66, but still a significant correlation. We had 9 participants, 7 males, 2 females. Still, it represents a significant, strong, positive relationship between the counter movement jump and the explosive leg power factor. If one is higher, the other one is likely to be relatively as high, vice versa. And for the overall, all right, so for the adults and the athletes in total, we had 14 participants, 10 males, 4 females, with a correlation of 0.60. Still, a very significant relationship in exercise science. So we see a significant, strong, positive relationship again. And everything that I've said in the last 2 slides stands. Consideration. What are some factors to take into consideration and changes for future research? Well, various levels of training status, age, adults, and athletes. So what I mean by that is, although everyone was trained, some have been training for 6 months consistently, other a year and more, especially in our adult groups. Every athlete was relatively trained, but still in various levels. At the gym, I perform our test. Athletes are separated by levels. And so the higher the level, we have an elite group, then we kind of go down the list there. But most of all my athletes were in the elite group and the one just below. So there's levels of training. And I will say that if we look at the change of behavior model, everyone was in the action phase easily, and some of them were even in the termination adoption phase. I would consider giving 2 attempts at each jump and either taking the average of both or simply taking the highest score. I just kept it at 1 score just for simplicity. I think there was, which kind of goes along with my 3rd point here, there was some unknown, especially in the jump 4 test. People might have never done it before, so they didn't really know how to do it, which I think might have affected their explosive leg power factor. They stayed on the ground a little too long, or they didn't jump as high. So it might have been a little bit of lack of knowledge on how to get a really high score there, which might have been on me and not explaining it properly. Timing, lack of consistency, and protocol. I wrote that one down because I kind of just threw it at the active adults or the athletes. Hey, would you like to participate in my study? They didn't really know beforehand that they were going to jump. And so I think in an actual research, they would have an appointment scheduled and they would know that they would be jumping that day. So there's a little bit of blindness in my study. And then sample size. I was able to get 14 participants, but I think in an actual research, we would need a lot more to see a significant relationship, at least, to really know that they have a relationship and a correlation. Conclusion, summary and practical application. To summarize, participants were divided in 2 groups, active adults and athletes. They were asked to perform 2 tests, the counter movement jump and the jump 4-time tests, which we use the explosive leg power factor given to us by the Just Jump Math system. And so we ran stats independently and all together. We used the Correl function in Excel, which gave us all our correlation. And then we identified its relationship. We know that we saw a significant relationship in all 3 groups. And so if you have a higher counter movement jump, you'll likely have a relatively high explosive leg power factor, vice versa. I've mentioned it a lot at the beginning of this presentation, but I think these 2 tests, some of the practical applications, these 2 tests are great to monitor performance over time. We can see if a strength and conditioning professional needs to adjust his exercise selection and his periodization, depending on if his athlete is improving or deteriorating. Is the athlete overreaching? Is the athlete overtrained? And so we can use those 2 tests to identify where he's at in the training cycle and adjust the periodization from then. I also noted that other exercises to get better at these 2 exercises would be exercises that require high explosivity, such as the clean, the high pull, the snatch, Anything that requires triple extension, I wrote down, I think would be great exercises to improve these two tests. And then further research is needed with a bigger sample size and a stricter protocol to determine their true relationship. And so some of my work cited at the end, and I just want to give a big thank you to all the athletes and the adults that participated in my study. And thank you to Wally Strength and Conditioning, where I work at, to give me permission to conduct this little project. Thank you. Hope you enjoy.